Hello, Kirba, can you hear me?
Yes, Suresh, I can hear you very clearly. Thank you for joining in.
Oh, that's awesome.
And hello, everyone. You, you guys must be like super punctual in life. I'm suspecting that all of you must be front benchers in school. Um, it's our session starts at 11 o'clock, and I see many of you have logged in at 10:45 and 11 itself. So a sincere appreciation. We're going to wait for another 3 more minutes for the session to start. And while we are doing that, a quick round of housekeeping rules. The entire session, because we're going to have people from other Thai chapters also come in, we've been requested by Thai Chennai to host the entire session in English. However, if we feel that there are quite a few participants from Tamil Nadu, Suresh volunteered and he kind of preferred that he'd like to do this in a mixed Tamil and English combination. So feel free to let us know in the comments below. If you're from Tamil Nadu, give me a thumbs up, or if you can just leave, put a message, your name and where you are from. Your name, what's your, which organization and where you're from, the place. That will be very helpful for Suresh and me to take a call. That's number one. Number two is thank you for your interest and your hunger to learn. Today's session is going to be fantastic, and the session is completely powered by all our collective interest. This is an AMA, which means that is Ask Me Anything, which is Ask Suresh Anything, actually. So feel free to type in. But the only thing that you'll have to keep in mind is when you're asking Suresh something, also ask yourself, is my question relevant to the larger audience on Zoom? So right now, we are inching towards 50 people, and more people will join in as we go by. The question I'm asking, will this be beneficial for others? If it is very specific to your company, you may want to save it for later. But if it's ask questions, that will be useful for others. So keep that in mind. I would also encourage all of us to stay muted during the conversation. Um, so this way we can cut down on any noise hindrances that come in. But when you have a question to ask, the right way for you to ask is if you can type in your question in the comment section. So if you look at, you will find a place called a chat. So in the chat, you can actually type in whatever question. So please don't wait for the end of the session for you to ask questions. Instead, anytime you feel like there's a question that's cropped up in your head, or you need some clarification, or you have a point to make, or you want to ask a question that is very relevant to the current scenario, don't hold yourself back and go ahead and type in the question. I will pick up the questions that is very pertinent for most of us, and I will pick up. And when I pick up, I will ask you to come and unmute yourself. I'll ask you to turn on your camera so you can come and ask the question directly to Suresh on camera. So that's how we're going to roll. So the time is exactly 11 o'clock, and we believe in punctuality. We want to start on time and we will finish on time. We have 120 minutes, 2 hours with us. We close at 1 o'clock. So let's get started. On behalf of all of us, I want to first thank Thai Chennai for organizing a fantastic series of sessions. We may all be locked down in our house, but they've really opened our eyes and ears to people all around, and we have had chances to learn and listen from successful CEOs. And in that series is today's session with Suresh Sambandam. Suresh is a phenomenal guy. I've known him for about a decade and a half now. The reason why I call Suresh phenomenal is because of him as a human and as a person, as someone who is very helpful, someone who truly believes in helping the community. All of us know he runs a company called Orangescape. Now Kissflow is the focus that he's focusing on. He is one of the very few members who is not part of the Zoho mafia. One of the key reasons behind making Chennai the SaaS capital of India and clearly putting Tamil Nadu on the global map. Someone who is very passionate, is involved very seriously in the entrepreneurial community, is involved even more seriously in the SaaS community. And every year he's part of the leadership team that does a SaaS-based event where SaaS founders from across India congregate together in Chennai. It's almost like the Mecca for SaaS founders. But more importantly, he's very passionate about making Tamil Nadu a $1 trillion opportunity. And if you, that's a signature topic and something that is very, very close to Suresh's heart. So this is going to be a phenomenal session, guys. So keep those questions coming in. So on behalf of all of us, Suresh, thank you so much for coming.
Thanks,
Suresh, you'll have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I unmuted. Thanks, Kirba. That was a very long introduction. Feels a little embarrassing. Thank you very much. Happy to be here. Thanks for organizing this. Yeah, wonderful.
That is right. Ty is doing a phenomenal work. So I want to give a quick backgrounder about this session. The initial session emailer that all of us would have got is on SaaS, software as a service, and this is something that is really picking up in the Indian IT industry. While the businesses that India has always been known for, which is services, has been coming down. However, products business has really been going up, and that is part of where Suresh's company is positioned at. So my first question to you, Suresh, why are you so passionate about SaaS, and what is the secret behind Tamil Nadu and Chennai becoming the SaaS capital of India?
Sure. Kirba, if you don't mind, can I just quickly do a 2-minute advertisement about myself and the company, so that people who are probably coming in new can get to know about the background about myself, the company, and then probably jump into that part.
I think that's a good idea. For many of us, we have crossed a century mark right now, Suresh. So many of us would like to know more about you. And yeah, please go ahead.
I'm going to quickly share a couple of slides so that people can get this in context.
Yeah.
So Kissflow is actually a digital workplace. It's one single platform. We have customers across 160 countries, and we have a lot of enterprise customers, like more like 10,000 of them, using our software across 1 million users. These are all the countries where our users use our software. The key thing is we sell to, the relevant context here is we sell to all these 160 countries sitting in Chennai. We do not have anybody outside of India doing this. All of this global reach is done from Chennai in Tamil Nadu. So, which means that if we can do it, of course, most of you can do it as well. And that's how that's the theme of today's session. So that's what we're going to talk a lot about. And these are some of the global brands that use Kissflow. Of course, you know, most of these brands here, very, very popular brands. We also have a lot of Indian brands that use our software, which are again quite popular in the country. So Kissflow is a leader in the business process management space. Also, we graduated from the business process management space into a digital workplace. It's a full suite offering. Kissflow is also featured in Forrester and Gartner, and we are part of the like a global top 10 companies in these lists. And recently, we got featured as the global top 100 software growing companies in the world. And just to put things in perspective, so Kissflow is basically a unified platform, especially in today's world where we're talking about remote work and work from home. A digital workplace basically makes it happen. Instead of buying a whole bunch of software, which is there on the left, if you choose something like Kissflow, you will get everything unified in a single platform, and you don't have to keep switching. And of course, it will also have a huge commercial and cost advantage. That's a quick background which I wanted to talk about Kissflow and where I come from, because the whole session that we are going to talk today is primarily based on my experiences around building Kissflow. So I felt it is relevant to show you what we have done in the last 6-7 years, and that will probably also enable you guys to ask questions around those in this background. So that's why I felt it's very relevant to talk about it. Yeah, I think that's all I had. And sorry, Kirva, you asked a specific question about SAAS, so let's talk about that.
Yeah, actually, it's a good segue. Now that you gave a little intro about Kissflow, Suresh, it'll be lovely to get into the beginnings of Suresh Sambandam itself, because you have a very fascinating story. And the fascinating story is that Suresh actually comes from a very a small, actually not so much a small town, a slightly bigger town, but definitely not a metro, a place called Kadalur in South Arcot district. And Suresh very unabashedly actually opens up, very rare for a top CEO to openly come and say that he has only studied 12th standard. Even though he did a correspondence BCom, I'm not sure if that actually counts, but very surprisingly, Suresh has no qualms about admitting that he finished his 12th standard, started to help out his father in the real estate business, then started off with a computer training center, and then those are the humble beginnings. And it is astounding to see what's the turnover now, Suresh, if you can just paint a picture for others.
I don't know. We can talk about turnover, but I think probably will be valued maybe few hundred millions. So,
yeah. So from a guy who's 12th standard pass from a small town and moving on to running a global business out of 160 in 160 countries, that's a phenomenal story out there. So Suresh, please tell us in your own words.
Sure. Yeah, actually, you covered most of it, Kirpa. So I actually come from Kadalur. Kadalur is like 20 kilometers from Pondicherry, because most people know Pondicherry more than Kadalur for obvious reasons. Yeah, it was a small town when I was growing up. I grew up without knowing that I have to write an entrance exam to join an engineering college. That's the kind of awareness that existed in my friend circle when I was young. And of course, a few of my friends wrote those DOT exams. It's called Department of Technical Education at the time, I think. DOT 1, DOT 2, they called it. I think now it's called Common Entrance Exam or something like that. So few people wrote it without even telling others. They kept it like a secret. So yeah, that's the kind of a background I grew up with. When I finished 12th, my father was running a real estate business. So we tried to go into some professional courses. My father, at the time, he tried to go into medical, Salem Vinayaka Mission College. And then they asked for 5 lakhs capitation fee. My father said, okay, yeah, I can give you 5 lakhs, but you'll, meaning, நீ பெரிய ஆளா ஆயிருவ வீடு ஃபேமிலி காலி ஆயிரும் அப்படின்னு சொன்னாரு தமிழ்ல சொல்றாங்க. ஸோ அந்த மாதிரி ஒரு பேக்ரவுண்ட்ல I grew up, and he said, why don't you take up the family business and run it? So I actually started after 12th. I started running my family business for a few years because it used to be in the real estate business. So we used to buy large plots of parcels of land and make it into plots and sell it. So always used to run into litigations, court cases, police station, go filing complaints, and all of that. So yeah, but that gave me a lot of experience when I was young, because I was 17 years old when I first went to a police station to file a complaint against somebody else, and that was I think I hardly wore full pants at that time. So police, the inspector used to look at me in a very odd way. Who is this small kid just walking into police station and giving complaint? And he never took the complaint. And I have to go to the magistrate court and meet the judge and give the complaint because I have to tell him the police is not accepting my complaint. So, meaning these are all phenomenal experiences. At that time, I was cribbing because my father made me to do all these difficult things, while my friends are enjoying and going to movies and going to college, following girls, and all of that stuff is happening. I'm doing all this nonsense, so-called nonsense, right? But I never did I know that இது வந்து ஒரு மிக மிக என்ன சொல்றது ஒரு ஆழமான ஒரு அடித்தளம் வந்து என்னோட பின்னாடி லைஃப்க்கு ஏற்படுத்துச்சு. பிகாஸ் ஐ லேர்ன் how to deal with life very, very early on, which most people did not do until they're 30 years old. But I got exposure about dealing with that when I was 17, 18 years old. So that is how my career started. I had phenomenal exposure about life and dealing with real life problems rather than theoretical problems. That helped me a lot when I was subsequently running my companies. Then when I was about doing this in parallel, I actually a bunch of my friends கொஞ்சம் பேர்லாம் சேர்ந்து சாயந்தரம் 6 மணிக்கு மேல டைப்ரைட்டிங் இன்ஸ்டியூட் போகலாம் அப்படின்னு பசங்க எல்லாம் சேர்ந்து ஒரு டிசைட் பண்ணாங்க. அது என்னன்னா இப்பெல்லாம் we have coffee day அதெல்லாம் இருக்கு, but there is no coffee day at that time. If you have to meet, see, we studied in boys school and there's separate girls school and there is no co-ed there, right? So the only place to meet those days, coffee days are actually typewriting institutes are the coffee days of the world, right? So you have to go to the typewriting institute to meet the girls, and that's how I started going along with 4 or 5 of my friends to go learn typing, but mostly to see meet the girls. But although I didn't propose the idea, I just sort of joined with them. But what happened there, it became a turning point because the institute that started where I started learning typewriting, they bought a computer, Sterling Siva PC, and that's probably the first computer in Kadalur. And he said, if you pay 50 rupees more, meaning we're paying 30 rupees for typewriting, he said 50 rupees more, you can learn computer. So, but our motivation என்னன்னா 30 ரூபா கொடுத்தா 1 மணி நேரம் இருக்கலாம், 50 ரூபா கொடுத்தா 2 மணி நேரம் டைப்ரைட்டிங் இன்ஸ்டியூட்ல இருக்கலாம் அப்படின்னு சொல்லிட்டு we went and joined there. So, but that actually turned my life because I got hooked up into computers and I really understood it can phenomenally change the way things are done in business. And from there, it was no looking back. So I learned pretty much most of the software programming from there. I left my real estate business and started spending time in programming. And those days in Kadalur, there was not even a proper book house. We have to go to Pondicherry, to Higginbotham's to buy books. Books used to come from McGraw-Hill edition. There's no India edition, so it'll come in dollars, like $40. $40 into 40 rupees or 43 rupees will be 1,600 rupees. So used to buy books for 1,600 rupees in 1992-93. Today, in my own company, people are not buying books for 500 rupees. They're just hesitating to invest 500 rupees to buy books for their own selves. In 1993, I used to buy books for like 1,600 rupees. So today's rate is probably like 16,000 or, maybe more. But those are that 16,000 is probably worth like 500 crores today as company value, or probably more than that of my company's value. But that's the kind of investment I sort of made on myself because I really loved it. And it was never no looking back. And that's how I started my career. And then I started my own first training center in Kadalur, ran it for 3 years. The motivation there was not to build a business or make money, but really spend more time with computers because when I started a center, I got 4 computers. So I had time to spend time with 4 computers. So I got really, it's like today you can see video games, people who buy video games, they get very obsessive about it. அந்த மாதிரி வந்து கம்ப்யூட்டர் மேல வந்து ஒரு ஆழமான காதல் அந்த சமயத்துல. அதனால வந்து I learned a lot of things on my own. Learned DOS programming, C, C++, assembly language, Unix, Apro Windows vanduchu. Then all of that pretty much learned it on my own. That gave me the foundation on programming. Later gave me a great job in HP. So I had to close this company that I started training center for 3 years. After 3 years, and then went to Bangalore, worked in HP for 4 years. Then worked for another US company for 4 years, and then finally started Orangecap Kissflow. So that's really the nutshell of how my own journey came about. I hope that's
yeah. That was you fast tracked the important sections of it, but you made it sound so easy.
It was actually fun. I don't know whether it is. I wouldn't say it's easy or not. It was fun, definitely. I have gone through a lot of difficult challenges. There were times in my entrepreneurial journey I had difficulty in making payroll for the employees, which means employees க்கு சம்பளம் கொடுக்கிறது வந்து நிறைய டைம் வந்து கஷ்டமா இருந்திருக்கு. ஒரு சமயத்துல வந்து I had an Innova car. I had to sell my car, got like 6 lakhs or something, and then I had to pay that month's salary for employees. அந்த மாதிரிலாம் பண்ணியிருக்கேன். So it was not easy, but it was not frustrating, or it was fun, and it was enjoyable. It was like solving a problem, solving a puzzle, going to the next level. It's like a game, right? You're just playing the game and you're crossing each hurdle and then going into it. That's how it always looked to me. So that part I really liked it.
Yeah. So this is for Suresh and for all of us following. Some of us have been requesting if the session can be held completely in English, and that's the reason is because this session, unlike the previous other sessions, we are opening up the session to all other Thai chapters. So we are going beyond Thai Chennai, and we are opening it up to Thai chapters in Mumbai, Delhi, Bangalore, and that's the reason why Suresh is very passionate speaker in Tamil, and that's where you can really see the original Suresh really come out. But in the interest of people from other chapters, we'll stick to English, and I want others to please understand.
No, I will mostly be speaking in English, like 90%. Like 2-3%, I'll have to switch to Tamil to say something which people can understand in the local context. I also saw a lot of people wanted to hear it in Tamil, but yeah, I think it's going to be in English, like 95% of the conversation. So
correct. There are some things only when you say in Tamil will that impact really come in.
I'm sure.
So the reason why I feel your session to be very pertinent is because there are quite a few of us from the hinterlands, not non-metro folks. And this is a beacon of hope, because if someone can come from Kadlur and build a multi-million-dollar company, so can everyone else. I want you to touch upon that transition from being an employee. You got into HP, then you got into another company where you were there as an employee, and there was this one stage where you decided to branch out and start Orangecap from scratch. Now that is a slightly difficult jump. So I want you to talk us through about how that happened, because that will be very pertinent for many of us.
Sure. Yeah. So, okay. The thing that I wanted to talk about is somewhat relevant here is domain knowledge, right? So there are two types of companies that people can build. One type of companies are like I'm mostly talking about tech, right? So because mostly tech is what I understand somewhat better. Running companies or starting companies itself is an ocean. There is no formula to make a successful company, right? But within the tech space, there are two types of companies one can build. One is actually like a consumer-facing companies, and figuring out the idea and going after that is relatively easy, although scaling them and making like $1 billion company like Flipkart or Amazon is going to be difficult. That part is difficult, but the original idea, understanding what to build and who is the customer, is somewhat easy, because in the consumer facing companies, you tend to know you yourself are a user. And if that works for you, and you know there are more people like you will be benefiting from it, you can go after building that. And then you can go after explaining the value proposition. So it normally doesn't require that much of a deep domain expertise. But when it comes to B2B companies, the whole story is very different. You cannot start a B2B company typically, like 80% of the time, if you don't have domain knowledge. So why am I saying that is, when I decided to start Orangescape, the domain knowledge became very important for me. So how? Because when I started working in HP, I worked on rule engine space, rule-based computing, and I actually have 3 patents in that area. So I worked for 4 years on rule engine in HP. And then when I left HP and joined another company, I continued to pick an area in the rule engine space. So the next company I started working was a company in the US called Selectica. That is also a business rules engine company. I worked another 4 years for it. So 4 plus 4, roughly 8 years of experience on rule engine, rule-based computing, which is like what is called as precursor to artificial intelligence, or the basic version of expert systems, what they call. So that is the area where I had built like 8 years of domain knowledge. So once you start, so domain knowledge is not like, you know, Java, you know, Python, or you know, the Oracle database. That doesn't count as domain knowledge, right? That is just technical knowledge. Domain knowledge is even within the technology space, there is like a technology domain knowledge that you need to have. So that in, like, for example, encryption is a domain knowledge, right? And the Madri, business rules engine is another domain knowledge, which I built over 8 years. And that gave me the confidence that we can go ahead and build something in the rule engine space. So when I started Orangescape was also a business rules engine company. The idea was, until the time we figured out that business rules engine was always supposed to be go to business users, but it was so complex that business users are never able to use rules engines because they needed very high-end programmers to use rules engine. So our idea was to build a business rules engine based product which people can use without any programming knowledge. And that's really how we started Orangescape. And that confidence came from the domain background that we had. And also there are some certain opportunities that came because I actually built a big product in Selectica, which was bought by Accenture. So the product that I built used to sell for $5 million for a single license. Okay. So 2 million for in a license and another 2-3 million for implementation. So $5 million is a deal value. That's a kind of an enterprise product. Every customer who buys that product pays $5 million US. Okay, that's a lot. And that product was bought from my previous company by Accenture. And at that time, I didn't want to go to Accenture. And then it gave us the sort of a great opportunity to spin off and create Orangescape. So it's a combination of having domain knowledge in some area and a sort of an opportunity coming together, sort of combining, connecting all the dots, and then thinking this may be the right opportunity to pursue our dream. So that is how I actually started off, with Orangescape. Was it useful?
Yes, that was definitely useful. How you were working on the product, you stepped off, and people started to license the product. I think that's a smart way of moving very smoothly, Suresh. So thank you so much for that. I want to call Sarumati. Sarumati has a pertinent question for you. So Sarumati, could I request you to turn on your video, unmute yourself, and ask Suresh directly, please? Okay, I'm going to ask on behalf of Sarumati. I'm not sure if she's able to hear me. What is the difference between software as a service to solution as a service?
What is a solution as a service? Basically, software as a service is not anything. There are two important aspects of software as a service. One, of course, is the software is hosted, and technically it's hosted and available online in a cloud-based environment. That's a technical option. The most important aspect of SaaS is that how you pay for it. It's the business model, right? A typical software in the past is paid by a one-time fee and a maintenance charge, and the ownership, you basically give the ownership of the software to the buyer, mostly as license as a licensing option. So pretty much somebody buys a software and installs in their own computer, and then uses your software, and then you pay 20%. So that's used to be the part. In the software as a service, what you're really talking about is host the software on the cloud, and every time a user uses the software, for every usage you pay for it. It's pretty much like how you pay for your mobile phones. So you pay a monthly fee for your mobile phone, like 300 rupees or whatever it is, and pay per use, or even like prepaid is like pay per use, right? You pay for what do you call, top up your mobile for 300 rupees, and then as you use, the amount goes down, and then once you exhaust money, you need to top up again. So as you use, you pay for it. So this is the fundamental thing. So it could be a solution that you're offering in this model. It could be a platform like Kissflow you're offering in this model. So it doesn't matter. So, but these are the two aspects. The second aspect is more important. The first aspect, just an enabler, because if you're doing the second aspect, but you don't have control on the usage, and if the software is running in your customer's premise and you don't have a way to turn off your software when they are not paying you the money, then you essentially lost the ability to monetize it the way you intended your business model to work. So that's why the 1 and 2 sort of go hand in hand, actually. So I hope it answers.
Got it. I know that all of you have been unmuted by the organization. So I find that some of you have difficulty unmuting and asking. So I'm going to, for the benefit of others, especially for Saurav from Thai's side, the next 3 people who are lined up for asking Suresh are Eril. So if you can, Saurav, if you can unmute Eril, that would be helpful. TG Srinivasan comes next. After that, Suresh Kumar is the third. So Eril, if you please go ahead and ask Suresh your question.
Hello, sir. My question is, so in this particular automation field, after this crisis, how it is going to be happening? And not only that, and what are the options we have to gain a lot of business through automation? So in service segment or product segment or something like that. So I just wanted to know.
Sure. So I think there was a cartoon somebody like a Dilbert, equivalent of a Dilbert I saw. So who is in charge of digital transformation? And there were 4 options: CEO, CFO, CIO, and then the 4th option was COVID-19. Okay, and of course, the most vote goes to COVID-19. So the digital transformation is going to go through the roof because of COVID-19. So COVID-19 has made everyone super aware of importance of having their entire business operations on a digital platform. And if that most of their business operations, especially all the administrative part, right? Because if you're running a brick and mortar company like, and you are manufacturing, let's say, automobile parts or something like that, you can't do anything. So you still need employees to go and work in the factories. But the operation part of it, the administration part of it, the similar, the knowledge work part of your businesses can all be automated and brought into a digital environment. And we are seeing, actually, surprisingly, we measure our company's performance through visitors who come to our website. We get few million visitors to our website. It has not gone down significantly. The number of signups that people are trying our product has in fact marginally increased in COVID-19. The reason for although the conversions didn't happen, in the sense that a lot of people are trying software, but they are not yet buying that much as we expected. But a lot of people who are trying. So this basically signals that people are going to go top gear into automating and digitizing their processes, and hence companies like ourselves will stand to benefit a little bit from the COVID-19 effect. Of course, there are many other industries will get affected. Of course, like travel and tourism and all going to be affected for some time. But the technology companies, especially into automation and digitization, digital transformation, digital workplace, all of those companies are going to sort of benefit from this.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Kripa, for allowing me to ask this question directly to Mr. Suresh. Mr. Suresh, my question is, while launching the products on the SaaS model, what factors do you consider in order to price them? The variations, the add-ons, including dividing the products into two different, like whether process-based or vertical-based. So what kind of a factors do you take into consideration is what my question is, especially on the pricing part.
Okay, pricing is always a very very difficult one, actually speaking. So when we first, let me come from my experience. The best pricing is what the customers can pay for it without you losing money on the table. If you can balance the maximum that the customer can pay for a particular product without you losing money on the table and the customer is happy, that's your ideal price point. But most of the time you don't know how to figure it out, right? So when we started out, we priced our product at $3 per user per month, because at that time the logic was Google was charging for Google G Suite offering at $5. And it had a whole bunch of capabilities along with it. And we said, if Google is offering at $5, we should may not be able to offer at the same price. And then we offered at $3. And we didn't face much resistance with that. So people were quite happy with that. Then we realized we had a little learning there. The learning is that Google is actually selling a commodity software where there is a huge competition from Microsoft. On the other hand, we are selling a very specialized software, and it is incorrect for us to benchmark ourselves with Google's price point. So we actually doubled our pricing from $3 to $6. And then also we didn't actually see a resistance from the customers. Then we again increased our price from $6 to $9. Then also it was quite okay for the customers to pay for our software. Of course, we are talking about international market, and we are not, we have out of our 100% of our customers, around 7 to 10% are only India-based customers. 90% of our customers are coming from international markets. And 50% is in the US, 20% is in the Europe, another 20% from Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, Malaysia, Hong Kong, those kind of developed countries, and Middle East, and then 7% from India. So that's our composition. So you need to take it with this perspective, because some of the things that I'm saying may not work in an Indian market. If you're primarily targeting only India as a market, it may not work. So if you look at the current topic itself, we're talking about building a global SaaS company from India. So which means you're not really strategizing to build this company for India market. You're building it for global market, and India is part of the global marketplace. So that's how we have looked at it. So coming back to the pricing, so we started from 3. We went with some logic, and then we were consciously tweaking our pricing to get to a sellable price point. And right now our pricing is more like a bundle offer. So we don't sell it on a user-based pricing. So we basically say we have to buy a bundle of 50 users and it costs like $500. So we went from a $3 per user pricing to $6 to $9, and then we also had $12 or something like that at some point in time. At least it was internally we were having that pricing. But then we went into a bundle pricing at $500 starting price point. So this is a journey. Pricing is a journey, and you have to be constantly looking at your product, benchmarking your product with adjacent offerings and direct competition. And the uniqueness in which your services are offering. What are the alternatives customers have? If the customers don't have any other alternative, then of course you can charge whatever you want. So all of that has to be factored in when you're coming up with pricing. Did it make sense?
Perfect. Thank you. Can I request Suresh Kumar? Suresh?
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you, Kripa. Hi, Suresh. This is DSK.
Hey, DSK, how are you?
I'm good. Kripa, if you remember me, I was part of the first Riser Challenge and RSK.
I distinctly remember. Yes, DSK.
So my question is, so there are a lot of things going on due to this COVID-19 situation. So post this COVID-19, what are the opportunities or niche markets where you see there's an opportunity for starting a product?
Opportunities for starting a product. Actually, I feel maybe one of the things that was always talked about in the SaaS space is actually vertical SaaS, right? And it sort of never really took off. In India, there is this company called Zenoti. It's in Hyderabad. They are actually valued pretty high, and they I think even raised 50 million or something like that. So a very big funding round they raised. So that's one of the successful vertical SaaS companies from India. They do sort of a ERP for spas, high-end spa management software, basically. Sort of think about it like ERP for spas. And it's so specialized, right? Think about, like, we are not talking about retail. Within retail, there's a small micro segment like spa, right? And there somebody is able to build like $100 million worth of business. I think because of the earlier question that I talked about, there is a huge move toward digitization and transformation that's going to be happening because of COVID. Everybody is going to go to implement automation and bring digital into their companies. All these vertical specific software segments can take off potentially. There is a huge opportunity for someone to build similar like spa management software. If you can pick a specific vertical and build something for that, that may be a huge opportunity, I believe.
Thank you. Riaz, if you're on, could I ask Riaz to come online and ask Suresh, please?
Yeah, I'm here.
Go ahead, Riaz.
So I have seen your responsibility to the domain knowledge with the tech knowledge. So it's been something which was hitting continuously, and now I can understand what is the difference between technology and domain knowledge. So even I was in assumption if I would have Python or PHP, you can serve in the tech, but now I got it. That is a different, and this is different. So when it comes to domain knowledge, as a mid-level program or a person who's in an entry level, so how a person can explore his domain knowledge? What are the ways to can understand the domain, and what is your suggestions for us to improve our domain knowledge, or how can we get into our domain, and what are the ways we can get into more deeper into our domain? Any suggestions for us, those things? Because
yeah, so the thing is, most of the people in India who are in tech space, we are very passionate about everything that comes up newly, right? Somebody will release something like React or Angular when it front-end technologies, or something like Kubernetes will come, or a new programming language will R might come, or suddenly something like machine language, ML is coming, AI is coming. All these are technologies, right? See, domain knowledge is like how you put, like rule-based computing is a domain knowledge, for example, or building something like let's say an API infrastructure, like Apigee, for example. That is like a different type of domain knowledge. And most of the time, the domain knowledge comes in not getting obsessed about the technology learning that we get, but actually getting obsessed about how technology is solving a particular business problem. It could be business problem is also a technology related business problem. For example, rule-based computing is also a technology related business problem. So if we can focus on the obsession about how technology can be applied in solving a problem and stay in the problem domain, then like I gave you my example, I spent 8 years in understanding and working on rule-based computing for me to get some basic understanding of the gaps that exist in the domain to be able to say, you know what, in rule-based computing, everybody is building these sophisticated rule engines only high-end programmers can use. Can we build a rule engine which non-programmers, non-technical people can use? So how do you get that knowledge? Because it needs a lot of time spending a lot of time in that area and being conscious about that, right? So on the madri ungalku, if you work on it, only then you will get the domain knowledge. But 99% of the programmers that are working in the technology space, they are only obsessed about Python, PHP, Java, C, C++, all that stuff. So that's not going to help. So you'll always end up working for somebody. You'll never be able to build a company out of it. You'll end up working for somebody who's having some idea and who wants some technical knowledge to solve that particular problem. So yeah, so that's the answer for that.
Great. Thank you, Riaz, for that question. I'm going to call in a fellow Kadalur person. Balaji, do you want to unmute yourself and come and ask a question for Suresh? Balaji P.
Yes. Hi, Suresh.
Hi Balaji. So which Balaji is this? Do I know you or?
Yeah, so I'm part of NASCAR. I'm also from Kadalur.
Oh, hi, how are you?
Yeah, so as you said, you started business, you started training business in Kadalur. Do you have any plan to start up company in Kadalur district?
you should start, na? I can probably help you. Or yeah, but I'm busy building Kissflow. This itself is for more than a full-time job for me. But I'm passionate about Kadalur. I'm doing a bunch of stuff in Kadalur. I've adopted a school in Kullanjavadi. It's a sort of a tsunami-affected school. So I'm doing a lot of social work in Kadalur, but not so much about building a company in Kadalur. Maybe sometime in the future, maybe there'll be an opportunity. Right now, I'm just so preoccupied with Kissflow, actually.
Then, so you started a training business. Now you are become as a software profession as well as holding a software company. Which is giving a more satisfaction as a training business or it's a software business?
Actually, I love to train and train. I'm actually fundamentally a trainer. Even today, I actually feel most of my strengths come from the fact that I'm able to learn something and teach people. And as a founder, as a CEO, that's actually a constant process, and that's what you end up doing anyway, right? Because you are figuring out, you're going on an uncharted territory and sort of cracking new problems. And once you internalize that, you sort of have to set up a team and help them, scale it to a different level. And that's really what you're doing. So the roots for that actually comes from training, I guess. So I continue to teach very regularly. I conduct programs like I have this program called Marketing Masterclass, which I do. I am also very passionate about marketing after technology. So continue to do things like that, which takes me back to my training days.
So Suresh, talking of marketing, there were a few questions that came about. So I'm going to ask on their behalf because a few people have
one more thing, I'll just also set up some context about the SAAS so that people can also ask questions around that, right? So basically, I do this session. Is it okay, Kirpa? I'll probably take 2-3 minutes and just walk through 2-3 slides, and then we'll open up that question. Is it okay?
Sure, go ahead, guys.
So this is this talk that I gave on how India can actually build a $1 trillion opportunity and make India a SaaS nation. And of course, some of you may know, but many of you may not know, Chennai is actually the SaaS capital of India. And the reason is we have a very, very vibrant ecosystem, Chennai SaaS ecosystem in Chennai. These are some of the logos that you may not know, that there are so many companies in Chennai. Of course, some of the big companies, I put it on the top. Some companies I might have missed out, but that's not intentional. If you send me your logos, I'm happy to add it in the slides, because I keep giving this talk in very regularly. Most of you may not know, Chennai is actually makes $1 billion in SaaS revenue, and this is real money, right? See, when Flipkart makes $1 billion, it is a GMV. It's called the gross merchandise value, which means that you buy a TV, you pay 20,000 to Flipkart, but Flipkart has to pay to Philips or Sony 18,000 of it, and the actual money that they get is 2,000, which is the gross margin, and then they have to pay for shipping, all that stuff. So eventually, their margin may be very, very less, and sometimes even they will sell it at negative price. But when we talk about $1 billion in revenue, this 90% of this revenue, close to 85% of this revenue, goes to the companies that are making this money in Chennai. They don't have to give this money to anybody else, right? So this means this is real money, and this is not GMV value. So that's a very, very important milestone. And the beauty is, Chennai has raised, as an entire company ecosystem, we have raised only $500 million on funding, but we make like $1 billion in revenue, right? So the funding to revenue ratio is at least 2 times, which is pretty good, right? And Chennai also has a very, very deep technical talent when it comes to SaaS. The reason why I'm talking about this is normally talent is actually seen as like technical talent. If you really look at if you look at a Cognizant or a Infosys or something like that, people are mostly technically knowledgeable, and then there is project management skills. These are the 2 things that we are very good at. Right? But when it comes to SaaS talent, this is a full spectrum of talent that is required to build a SaaS company, and that full spectrum is actually available in Chennai. What does that mean? Means you need product managers, you need really good technical developers, you need UX designers, and then you need inbound marketers, and then you need inside salespeople. So these are the 5 core competency that is required to build a great SaaS product. And we have all those 5 different categories of talent that is available in Chennai. And that's really what makes Chennai as like the SaaS capital of India, right? Now, the opportunities in SaaS comes in 4 segments, okay? Now, we are talking about building a global company for SMB customers. That is one segment. Building a global company for enterprise segment, that's another segment. Building a company which is targeted in the India, Asia market in the enterprise space, that's another segment. And building a company in the India, Asia market in the SMB space, and that's another, there are 4 really segments. And I put some sample logos just to give you an idea what I'm talking about, right? So if you really look at companies like Kissflow, Zoho, Freshworks, all of these companies are targeting global market in the SMB space. We also have enterprise customers. That is just like a bonus, right? So for example, this is what I talk about. So in the B2B market, so there are like 5 segments, like very, very small companies, like Zoho, like 1%, 2% companies. And then there is very small companies, like less than 50 employees, right? And we are targeting this sweet spot segment of mid-market and SMB customers. And this is the top right corner segment. And that's the sweet spot opportunity exists. And sometimes what happens is we market heavily to this segment, and this marketing also appeals to people in the enterprise segment. And automatically they also like the offering that we have for this segment, and they also end up buying. That's why we end up having a lot of enterprise customers. So we have like 50 or so Fortune 500 customers who are using our software, and none of them we actually went and met physically. We have not seen any of our customers face to face. All of our customers are sold remotely, serviced remotely. We don't meet them at all. very rarely we would have probably met 3 to 5 customers for some exceptional reasons. Other than that, the thousands and thousands of customers we have never met them, right? So that's the model, this is the opportunity and this is the model. And I'm just giving you some background so that you can ask me some questions around this, so that it will be important. And the other thing that you might want to remember is, this is true for any segment, more so for SaaS, you can build a $100 million company in 5 different ways. Like, for example, every customer gives you $100,000 and you have 1,000 customers, you get $100 million. $100,000 per customer and you get 1,000 customers, you get $100 million. Or every customer pays you $10,000 a month and you get 10,000 customers, you get $100 million. So that is how this whole thing works, right? And you need to really know what is your business, which is that, are you an elephant hunter or a deer hunter or a rabbit hunter or a fly catcher or a mouse catcher, right? So depending upon this, the economics and the business model, the product, the team, the marketing, every single aspect of your business will change, right? So if you're an elephant hunter, there is something called whale hunting, which is $1 million customers on top of this, right? So if you're elephant hunting or a whale hunting, the complete model of your business is different. Kissflow is into deer and rabbit hunting, right? Our model is different. This model won't work for catching flies. So it's important for you to understand this segment, and then this segment, and put all of them in perspective to model the way you need to build your business. I think since Kriba said going to talk about marketing, I felt this is relevant. And the other point that you want to understand is, in SaaS, unlike the traditional businesses which follow a funnel model, right? You basically do marketing and then you generate leads and give it to sales. And then from there it becomes customers. That's a traditional old way of selling and marketing, right? But when it really comes to SaaS works more like a flywheel, where the product and your customers are at the center of the flywheel, and the marketing, sales, and service works continuously on a recurring basis to make that whole thing work, right? In SaaS, customers are got for lifetime. It's not like sell and forget, right? It's not like a one-time sale and you forget, because people are going to buy your service, and every month, every interaction, every day, your service needs to be there, and it needs to offer the same value consistently over a long period of time. So which means it's not like fire and forget model, right? So I'll probably stop here. I'll have a few more slides. I'll come to that little later. So it's important to understand the SaaS opportunity segments, and where I put some logos for you to sort of understand these segments clearly. Okay, so I'll probably stop here and then ask for questions.
So here's a relevant question now that you gave us an insight into SaaS, Suresh. And the question is, there are a bunch of people who are in the software line and they're seriously considering getting into the SaaS space, knowing very well that SaaS is the best way to go if one were to scale up really quickly, far greater and faster than a service company. So for people like those, what would be your advice on getting starting a SaaS company?
Okay, I actually, then I have to go back to the slides. Okay, so I had one slide for that. First, you need to understand, if you want to start a great SaaS company, this is actually the global SaaS, SMB SaaS model, right? It's called the global SMB SaaS model for flywheel. It all starts with a great product. If you're targeting this segment, right? Because the reason is, from India, the sweet spot segment to target is actually the mid-market and the SMB segment. The reason for that is, enterprise segment, you need to invest heavily in traditional field salespeople in the US if you're trying to sell it to the enterprise segment. And in the US, if you're hiring really good salespeople, you're really talking about $200,000 to $250,000 on it's called OTE, on target earnings, which means if a salesperson achieves his target fully, his full quota, let's say his quota is $1 million. If he achieves $1 million quota, you will pay him $250,000 compensation, fixed and variable put together. That's called the OTE earnings, right? Now, for that guy to start producing result, it'll probably take anywhere between 6 to 9 months to do that, or sometimes even a year. And you cannot hire one person. You have to hire 3 to 5 people, because in sales there is what is called as law of probability. If you have a team of 5 people, one person will be a superstar, 2 to 3 people will do really well, 1 or 2 people will not work out. So if you just have only one person, this whole probability game won't work. So you need to have at least 4 to 5 people. So if you're really trying to build an enterprise product, you're really looking at $250,000 times 4, which is, you need to think about like $1 million investment in the enterprise segment for 1 year to start seeing results. Now, and that's why it's very difficult to kick off a new startup in the enterprise segment straight away. And that's one of the reasons why I put this as a sweet spot bonus segment. The reason why I didn't pick the very small, most of the time people are also looking at very small companies. Here you need to you can only market to them and they have to buy on their own. You cannot sell to them, right? And they also don't have much money. There is a lot of churn there. So all of that makes these two segments a very sweet spot segment. And then you need to, of course, figure out this, which is, if you figured out this, you're already in rabbit and deer hunting. Then if you are starting the SaaS company, you start with a great product, right? And in the SMB market, to enter into the market, you need to have an affordable price point which people can buy without having to be sold, right? Which means that they look at the product, they like it, and the price is affordable, and then they can just make a purchase decision without having to, somebody has to go and convince them to buy. And if you have to sell at a reasonably affordable price point, if you have to make a viable business, you have to sell high volume, right? You cannot sell, if you are selling a $500 product versus a $50,000 product, if you have to sell it at large volumes to make this affordable cost work out for you, right? Now, if you have to sell it in large volumes, you have to sell it to everyone in the world. If you have to sell it to everyone in the world, you cannot have offices all over the world. So which means you have to sell online. If you have to sell online, you have to make people, you need to have an open pricing in your website. If you have to have open pricing, then only people will come to your website, understand what you're pricing, and determine if this is a price, meaning it's like buying a car. You should know whether you're buying a BMW, which is going to cost you 60, 70 lakhs, or you're going to buy a Maruti, which is going to cost you 5 lakhs. So that clarity is required for people to make a decision online. So you need to have an open pricing. Now, once you have open pricing, you need to have a try and buy model, which means people should be able to try your software and then buy it, which means you need to offer like a trial option. If you are going to offer a trial option, then your product needs to be great, because they are not going to buy your product without trying. If you have a very average product, this whole trial experience is going to be so pathetic, which means they're never going to buy. So which means the loop is disconnected. So that's why this is called the flywheel. This is a self-feeding chain reaction. So it starts with a great product, and then it sort of creates a chain reaction, and then it helps you build a big company. And this is the crux of building a global SaaS company out of India, right? Especially with the correct segment focus. So I'll probably stop here and see if this answers your question.
Yes, it does, Suresh. That was very helpful. I want to bring in Arun. Arun, if you can be unmuted, then I love your question.
I don't have that requirement. Can you please share the requirement?
Okay, maybe it's another Arun, I think. Arun Rajendran, were you the one who had a question about marketing strategies? All right. So
no, it's not me.
Okay, that's the peril of having too many Aruns in a chat. So I'm going to ask on behalf of the right Arun, and which is what marketing strategies, Suresh, has really worked for you the best for getting the initial set of customers?
Okay. This is actually part of a standard playbook. Okay. So if you are starting a typical SaaS company targeting to mid-market and SMB customers, which is targeting to global, the low-hanging fruit is actually start with an SEO. And before that, you need to first determine if your product is actually a discoverable product. So the first question you need to ask is, what is the category that you're going after? And sometimes most people don't have this category knowledge, right? So if you ask the question like, what is SAP? It will tell you SAP is an ERP. What is Oracle? Oracle is a database. So that is really the simplest way to answer the category question. So if you ask your product, what is your product? It should be able to tell you like Oracle is a database, SAP is an ERP, Salesforce is a CRM. So that's a shortest answer that you should get, right? And if you know, you need to have the answer for that. So once you have the answer for that, then you need to figure out if that category is something that people are searching for online. If that category is something that people are searching for online, then it is called your product is in a discoverable category. If your product is in a discoverable category, then it is pretty easy to build out marketing for this, because digital marketing is going to really work out pretty well for this. And in digital marketing, you'll always want to start off with search engine optimization. That's a low-hanging fruit. In fact, during COVID, we have doubled down on search engine marketing investments, and we have downplayed our paid advertisements because we believe this is the best time to invest more on search engine optimization.
Can we go a little deeper into SEO and ask what specific activities in SEO has paid off the most?
So in SEO, I actually wrote SEO is a very vast domain, and most founders in SaaS companies, Kriba, they end up outsourcing SEO activities to third parties, and because they think SEO is a non-strategic initiative. But SEO is actually a very strategic initiative, because your SEO team, the keyword analysis and the keyword knowledge that you're going to build is a deep intellectual property, which I wouldn't want anybody else. That pretty much tells the what do you call the insights, the secrets of what are you targeting, right? And you don't want that knowledge to go outside of your company. And within SEO, there is people don't invest a lot of knowledge. So personally, I learned SEO, and that has actually helped me to make Kissflow successful. One of the reasons why Kissflow was successful is because we deeply invested in SEO very, very early. In 2013 and 2014, for close to a year and a half, we invested only in SEO, right? And that has helped us. And we developed so much knowledge in SEO that we published articles on how to do this. There is a big article I wrote on entrepreneur.com. For example, you need to understand how search engines actually work. For example, there are 4 kinds of intents that search engine uses. One is actually called navigational intent. Another one is called informational intent. Then the third one is called transactional intent, and the fourth one is called investigation or evaluation. So Google understands what is that user is trying to do of one of these 4, right? Is he trying to navigate? Is he trying to find some information? Is he trying to evaluate a product? Or is he trying to buy a product? These are the 4 intents that Google actually understands. And your SEO strategy, for example, you need to model your SEO strategy around these intent. And a lot of people do not know that this is how a search engine, in fact, at the deep level works. And we have different strategies to target each one of these intents. And you write content, and you do, for example, For all transactional intent, we directly do paid advertisement, because there's going to be having heavy competition. So you cannot afford to lose that to, because the first 5 ads will come straight away, and most of the traffic will probably go there. But most of the informational intent ads won't be displayed, because Google knows that people are looking for information and not looking for advertisement. And then Google tries to show knowledge articles. So there we will have to invest heavily in deep knowledge-oriented articles. And also the way you write articles, that are engaging in not necessarily in content, but also interactions, whether people are able to interact with your content, and that all sends signals to Google search engine. And if the users are interacting more with a particular page, like for example, clicking on something and expanding a particular image or something like that, all of that means something to Google. That means Google thinks this page is valuable for the user. People are actually trying to interact with this page, and then it starts promoting this page more often, things like that. And then there is this concept called silo, systematic interlinking of all the objects in your internal link optimization. Systematic internal link optimization. It's called silo. So people don't invest a systematic discipline of how you internally do link optimization, and people don't build credible backlink references. So there is a whole knowledge on SEO that is required to make this SEO function work really well. And almost always SEO is underestimated effort, and it's always treated as a low-end job. But it's a very, very intellectual, deep product knowledge, market positioning, keyword discovery knowledge, mapping all of this together and building a cohesive strategy and SEO is required to succeed in the SEO game. And almost most companies don't have it. The companies that are succeeding actually have it. That's basically the difference.
That's correct. I completely agree with you. I think it's one of the most pertinent, important strategies for any startup, for any company for that matter, to have. So thank you for that. I want to invite Arun. Arun has a very interesting question about, I'm going to invite Rajkumar. Rajkumar, on your global expansion. Rajkumar, do you want to unmute yourself and ask? You're on mute, Rajkumar. Yeah.
Thanks, Kriba. Yeah. Hello, Suresh. This is Raj from Sweden. I got 2 questions. The one is, since you already mentioned you have the presence only in Chennai and reached to more than 100 countries in the world.
160, Rajkumar.
Yeah.
So 100 is fine.
Yeah, I just told more than 100. Yes, the 160 countries, how much difficult it is and what strategy you used to reach that much customers? And my second question, you mentioned about you spend more money and time in reading the books. Could you suggest any books as a small entrepreneur, if you remember something?
Sure. No, meaning, I read a lot of books now. So the list is pretty long, but anyway, but let me talk. We talked about reaching the global customers across all countries is part of your integrated process of going global from day one, right? So you're basically using the digital platform to go global. So things like SEO, paid advertisement, directory listings in sites like Capterra or G2 Crowd and all of that, right? So there is a whole host of things, social media presence, writing content, writing blog, getting featured in podcasts, having PR coverage in TechCrunch or Forrester, getting covered in Forrester or Gartner, or we get featured on Forbes, we get featured on Entrepreneur, but none of this happened in day one, right? So you got to actually prioritize. There is maybe 100 different online digital marketing initiatives that you can do, but there will be 3 to 4 things that is relevant at this stage of at any stage of your company, and that much only time you would have, and you often want to prioritize them and execute them well, succeed with them, make it an institutional knowledge in your company, so that there is a team that is going to continuously invest time and work on it. And once the team is producing results consistently, then you start another initiative, have another team, another set of people who are working on new initiatives. So what this means is, in our company, we have like teams that are specialized on each topic. For example, for SEO, we have a whole set of team. For paid marketing, we have a whole set of team. For writing guest blogs, we have a whole set of team. We're doing PR coverage, we have another team. For managing social media, we have another team. So everyone is specialized in doing one part of that marketing full suite, digital marketing suite. But we never built that whole team in day one because we didn't have money to build all of that. So we had to prioritize the low cost but high impact items first, get it done, and make it an institutional knowledge in your company. Then we went after the next one. Bit by bit, brick by brick, we have sort of cracked the digital marketing in Kissflow. So, and that's what I would recommend for you too.
Thank you, Suresh.
Suresh, I'm sure having your company featured on Forrester, on the powerful quadrangle, and getting featured in Forbes, these play a very significant role in decision-making process. It helps build a lot of credibility for your company and for your products. If others were to do that, even if it is a small-scale company, if they were to get a very good PR online, what strategies would you recommend?
First of all, getting initial visibility in Forrester or Gartner is not that difficult as you think, actually. There is Forrester and Gartner have something called analyst briefings, which is actually free for any product, and you should be able to write to analyst briefings at forrester.com and analyst briefings at gartner.com. This is a standard email ID, I think, and then get a briefing. And if you have a good product, definitely they will give you some mention somewhere. It starts with a great product. So there is, if you don't have a good product, any amount of marketing is not going to cut it. Especially in the SaaS, in the digital world, where people are not selling but discovering your product, no amount of marketing or sales is going to help your product without starting off with a great product. So the necessary precondition is it should be a very, very good product. When I say very good product, it's not necessarily comprehensive list of features, but even a minimalistic product, but a very, very usable and a product that actually solves a clear core problem for a user. That is very important. Once you have that, it's easy to get attention of Forrester and Gartner. For example, in our case, we were the first one to give self-service business process management software for people in the SMB and the mid-market space, for business users and not for IT users. So business users can come to Kissflow and come and build a complete workflow automation without having to be a programmer. This is the first problem that we solved, and our product is extremely simple and extremely usable, but it didn't have all the comprehensive features of our competitors, because our competitors are targeting enterprise market. We are targeting the SMB market. Because we are targeting the SMB market and we are targeting a user segment which is not targeted by our competitors, instantly Forrester and Gartner picked up on us, because they said this is an unsolved problem and nobody else is solving it. But now it's a solved problem after 7 years, right? When we started 7 years ago, it was an unsolved problem. Now you cannot go after this. So you have to find another problem like this unsolved. So, and your product is good. And when you demonstrate it, you just have to create a wow feeling. If you can have that, stitch that, you should be able to get into Forrester and Gartner pretty easily. Now, getting into Forbes and entrepreneur.com and those kind of stuff is a bit difficult process. It is not that easy, but you'll always start out by going after smaller magazines. And as a founder, it is better to pitch when you're a young company. It is better to pitch as a founder to journalists rather than go through a PR agency. the journalists who are good journalists who are covering good stuff, they treat founder connects more valuable than going through a PR agency, right? So if you have good clarity on the product you're solving, just pitch it to some like mid-level magazines, and then they will start covering your interview or profile or your product story. And once you got few mentions, then you can start climbing up the hierarchy. Like everywhere there is a pyramid, right? Even in the media houses, there is a pyramid, and Forbes and Entrepreneur is on top of the pyramid. So you start somewhere in the middle of the pyramid, get some features and slowly work your way up. And once you start getting some visibility, then at some point in time, you can start pitching to Forbes, and they'll probably look at your other coverage and say, oh, okay, this guy is worth enough to cover, and then they'll start covering. It's a process that you have to follow.
Perfect. Thank you, Suresh. I want to invite Somu Chokalingam. Somu, do you want to unmute and ask your question for Suresh? You're still on mute, Somu. Somu, you're still on. Let me unmute you. Yes, Somu, go ahead.
Suresh, you were talking about what a SaaS company would need in terms of building a platform. If you take large services firms that are there in India, the IT services firms that are there in India, they kind of have most of these skills that you're talking about. So why are they not coming out with such platforms? That was one. And two, when you started Kissflow, it was more popular and easy to do IT services out of India. That's what many were doing. So how come you diverted from that and got into this? Because doing a platform model is a very high risk model. So what made you move into this high risk model of not starting IT services and getting into platform?
So, meaning I always worked in product companies. So building product, I actually came from that background. So I was actually a director of product engineering before I started my company. So, and hence it sort of was little natural for me to go into the product space. And I actually didn't know how to build a service company, honestly. So I, as much as I know how to build a product company today, I will fail miserably to build a company like Cognizant or an Infosys. It's impossible for me to build it. I don't know the knowledge. I don't have the knowledge to do that. So and hence I wouldn't have actually built a service company. It is not possible for me to do it. Why in service companies? Actually, two things. I think somebody asked about a book. I actually forgot to answer that. I'll probably answer that also at the end of it. Why Indian service companies are not able to build it? I actually think they can never be able to build a product company. Indian service companies. It is not about skill sets. It's about mindset. Building a product is a completely different ball game and a completely different mindset. And also there will be a structural conflict because the Indian service companies as a companies, they are organized in what is they are selling. The first question to ask is what is it they are selling? They are selling people's time. Their entire business model is structured around billing time for resources and getting paid for it. That's a one-line summary of all service companies. Now, unless you change that business model from billing time to billing IP, billing for IP, I make software and share that knowledge, my knowledge as software, and you pay for the software. And unless you transform your company's business model from billing for time to billing for software, you won't be able to do that. And that is a very difficult transition when you are making few $1 billion of revenue. You're basically saying, I want to take a company which makes $3 to $5 billion in revenue, and then build a product and transform that to this, and then make another pivot it to a company which makes $5 billion in software revenues without billing for people's time. That's a huge transition. and people won't really make it. And even sometimes they actually start these small product initiatives within their companies, and almost always most of these product initiatives have not taken off. I think 95% of it have not taken off. One or two products that have really taken off are really initiatives which got spin off as separate entities with a separate CEO. The IT services companies acts as an investor rather than a owner of the company. In those models, it actually works, and typically it requires like a product manager, the CEO who has the product management vision. It's a completely different ball game, and that's one of the reasons why almost always none of the IT services companies have never been able to transition to product game.
Any examples of such products, successful products from big companies, Suresh?
I think Infosys's banking product to some extent is probably one of the most successful product. I think it's run as a fairly an independent entity. I think iFlex was also another example. I think
Pinnacle.
Yeah, Pinnacle is one example. I think it's a big examples. I'm saying. Other than that, I'm not able to really point. If you just think about it, they're really not good examples of products that were created by IT services companies that became successful. I can't think about it.
So Shankar in the chat has mentioned that Polaris came out with Intellect, and there's Marshall from Ramco.
Yeah,
so those are some of the examples.
But Ramco is always a product company. So, and I think Polaris was also a product company. Meaning Polaris as a hybrid. I think so. I think now Arun has split this company into Polaris and Intellect. So now, meaning again, if you can think about it, the reason why Intellect came out of Polaris is it's always a constant conflict between billing for time versus billing for IP, right? And probably that's why Arun actually sold Polaris to, I think it's Virtusa, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, Virtusa and Polaris is gone because that's a pure service. The whole the kind of employees that you hire, the way you compensate, there'll be a lot of conflicts. You will hire a product architect and you pay him like 60 lakhs, and you would hire a product architect in IT services companies and pay him like 30 lakhs. And how do you maintain these two resources in the same company? And it won't work, right? People, the HR, everywhere it will be a conflict. So, and you will never be able to build that company, and it will always run into troubles.
Yeah. About the books, Suresh, what books has really made a good impact on you?
Yeah, some of the books that really make greatest impact on me is when it comes to marketing. There are 3 books I wanted to talk about. One is Crossing the Chasm. It's a Bible for technology marketers. Crossing the Chasm by Jeffrey Moore. Meaning I probably read it 3 times or 4 times, and every time it's worth it. Then there are 2 other books. One is Positioning, and then 22 Immutable Laws of Marketing. So these are the 3 books that I would like to recommend in marketing. And in sales, one of the seminal books I would like to recommend is Spin Selling. And when it comes to organizational building, there are a few books I would like to recommend. One is Jim Collins' Good to Great. Actually, we run a program in Kissflow every Friday, which is called G2G, Good to Great. Every Friday, 5:30 to 6:30, the entire company, we have a town hall. Every Friday, we have a town hall at 5:30, 6:30, and that town hall is called G2G, and it is inspired from Good to Great book. The other book that I recommend in organizational building is Fifth Discipline by Peter Senge. It's a very, very difficult book to read, but I had the opportunity of somebody teaching me 3 times. So I never had to go through the difficulty of reading the book. So I sat through a lecture session by one of my mentors for 3 times and read the book 3 times. So it was quite easy for me to read that book. That's a difficult book to read though. So Fifth Discipline is another one. And Good to Great. Then then Leadership and Self-Discipline by Harbinger Institute. That was one of the fantastic books. You should never miss to read that book, Leadership and Self-Deception. That's a most important book I would recommend anyone to read. And finally, when it comes to startups, there are two books I would like people to read. One is 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel. I may not be good in author names, so if I get it wrong, just pardon me. So, and then there is another book called Hard Things About Hard Things. So these are the two books. Actually, most of the time, founders read a lot of articles that are written by venture capitalists. And then they sort of follow the VC model, right? But the beauty about Hard Things is Ben actually wrote the book, Ben Horowitz. He actually comes from a founder perspective. And then he talks his whole story about how he builds the company from a founder perspective, although he later became the VC. The reason why I'm talking about it, there's just one example that I would like to give there. He talks about how VCs actually manage portfolio, right? They basically have 10 companies. If you take, they're betting on 10 companies. They're not betting on one company. They're betting on 10 companies, which is a portfolio. And their logic is 1 or 2 companies will become super duper successful in it. And even one company becomes super duper successful in it, and they are covered. And their typical formula is 1 company makes it big, 3 to 4 companies make it reasonable success, and rest of the companies die. So they're really not betting on your company. They're really betting on 10 companies. And they're actually hedging all their bets across all these 10 companies. But if you're a founder, you are only building 1 company. You're not hedging your bets on like 10 companies. You have just 1 company, and you need to succeed with that company, and you have no other choice, right? And this whole book of Hard Things About Hard Things is written from this founder perspective of how you have no other choice except to make that 1 company successful, right? And hence, that was one of my fascinating books that I read. So these are the books that I would like to recommend. Right?
Perfect. I want to invite JBL. That's a very unique name. So while whoever is named JBL, if you want to unmute. Meanwhile, I'm going to request everyone, if you can just take 5 seconds and go rename your name. You know, if you go to your window and then look on the top right-hand side, you will find buttons, a blue color button. Click on that and click rename, and please change your name to your original name. Otherwise, it's very awkward to call an iPhone 8 and Vivo 91. So thank you, guys. JBL, if you're on, please go ahead. Okay, so I'm going to ask on behalf of JBL, and for the rest of us, if you can go on mute, I'll appreciate it. So the question is, you mentioned about how at one time you had to sell your Innova to pay salaries for employees. Clearly, those must have been difficult times for you, Suresh. Right now, there are many entrepreneurs during COVID situation who are going through those difficult times. Revenue has dried up. People are forced to furlough or even lay off people. How did you manage, and what advice would you give for fellow entrepreneurs during these difficult times?
Okay, one of the greatest things of building a SaaS company is that you are building a recurring revenue business. You might have heard this word many times, but I don't know whether you have internalized this, right? Because a recurring revenue business really means that you don't have to sell every month, right? For example, if you make 10 crores revenue last month, and if you have all the customers with you this month, even if you don't sell to one more new customer, you still get 10 crores revenue every month. That's the great thing about SaaS. And that's why SaaS companies are valued like anywhere between 10 to 20 times their revenue, right? Simply because the customer lifetime value is very, very powerful. So I think this is a very important business, right? And it's like you are building a printing machine. Building a SaaS business is like building a currency printing machine. Once you build it and rolled it out and onboarded your customers, they are going to keep, pushing money into that machine every month. And it's going to happen without you doing anything. Just have to maintain the software and good customer service, and don't fuck up. Sorry, right? Just don't do stupid things. That's it. If you don't do anything so stupid and you are above average, also you'll be covered. Customers don't leave even above average software. Forget about world-class software, right? Because there is huge difficulty in change management. Managing change is very high, very difficult. Once you onboarded 50 employees of a company and then trained them on something like Kissflow, just the pain of going to another software, rebuilding everything, rolling out, teaching, it's so difficult. Even if you raise 10% more price, people will say, okay, I'll just rather pay the 10% and just sort of stay with this. So that's the power of building a SaaS company. So we haven't, so although with COVID, we haven't had any, we have had minimal cancellations. So we are hoping that even if you don't get new customers, but if our existing customers stay with us, we'll be covered. And we have built a business in such a way that our expenses are less than our income. So which means that as long as the current incomes come to us, that will be covering our expenses when we have not overspent. We have not heavily funded companies, and most of the heavily funded companies have done unreasonable growth plans, and they hired a lot of employees beyond their reach because they have money in their bank, and we have not done any of those mistakes from our side. So I think from that perspective, we are mostly covered. But since you asked about the COVID, we're also planning for like a plan B, right? A plan A is really like stay with, even if you don't get new customers, as long as current revenues are protected, we should be good. We don't have to do layoffs. We don't have to do salary cuts. But plan B is worst case, assume 25% of our revenues will go away. We're assuming we will 25% of our 25 to 30% of our customer revenues will go away because of customers are canceling. If that happens, we are basically working out a plan to scale down our marketing expenses, and I'm doing a financial model right now to see what happens. How do we run the company if we scale down our revenue by 30% worst case? And which would mean we will reduce marketing spend, as well as it would mean some salary cuts for employees. But my hope is we don't have to trigger plan B, stay with plan A. So that's really how we are coping up with this. And in terms of marketing, we are doubling down our organic spend. We are actually increasing our spend on organic, and we are trying to reduce our spend on inorganic, which is paid advertisements. So these are some of the changes or other tweaks in our business that we are doing to adapt to COVID-19.
Great. Thanks for that, Suresh. I want to invite Hariharan. Hariharan has a long question, but I think it's worthwhile for everyone in the audience to listen to. Hariharan, would you want to unmute and ask Suresh directly? Go for it, Hari.
Hello.
Hi, Hari. Can hear you.
Yeah. Hi, Suresh. This is quite a very nice session. Yeah. Anyway, I'm basically into servicing, but servicing IT solutions. But yeah, I've tried to build one or two SaaS products which came in as IT request, a solution request. But yeah, so what happened was, like you mentioned, like you clearly mentioned, I didn't have the domain knowledge. I'm so young, so I didn't have the domain knowledge, and the client was about to impart that knowledge, the processes, what they run into in terms of running their business and all. But the thing is, end of the day, we both are sort of like partners, and any product for that say is going to take some in terms of money. It's going to cost us to build that product in terms of hours, in terms of time. We need to invest some amount of number of months at least into that, and the partnering client is also not going to pay us for that. So which calls us to bootstrap that amount of money to be put into that product. And there's this very small glimmering hope that this product could break into a very greater product. So having all of that in mind, do we have any aspect of any financial model to work it out, like to make sure the bootstrap money is not that huge? And have you had any experiences where you had to convince or even partner? I mean, you have around 8 years of knowledge, like you mentioned. I mean, that surely would have helped. But for starting entrepreneurs, like starting SaaS builders, SaaS product builders, what do you suggest, and how do you want them to, structure their financial model so that they at least break even at some point?
Yeah. So basically, one of the fundamental differences between a service business and a product business is, product business, you're going to incur upfront cost, which is not going to produce revenue for a year, at least.
Okay. Yeah.
In a service business, you hire, let's say, 2 resources, and you'll be able to build them from day one, provided you get projects.
Yeah.
So from day one, you are basically running. There is no risk in a service business, because as long as you get the projects, and service business is low risk, low reward, right?
Yeah.
Product business is high risk and sort of high reward. That's really the game fundamentally. That's a template difference, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Now that means that when you're starting a product business like SaaS business, you need to invest that 1 year so it's going to take 18 months for a product to take off. Okay, that's a minimum. You need to invest 18 months.
Okay.
And in that 18 months, you will probably take 3 to 6 months to launch the first version, maybe like 6 months, and a year to market and get to something like $100,000 to $200,000 recurring revenue.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So maybe like, yeah. So if you get that, you're maybe like 2 crores, something like 1 to 2 crores recurring revenue a year. To get to that, you will probably take 18 months. Okay. Now, for which you need to follow a method to madness. And when you are starting the business, almost always you need to start with a lean team. So ideal SaaS company has this founder who has the domain knowledge and acts as a product manager.
Okay.
So you need one person for that, right? That is that core guy. He is like the founder and the product manager who has the idea, who understands the ideal customer profile and the target users, and he knows what features to build, right?
Okay.
So that person, one resource, he is the founder, and he is typically the product manager. The founders are the product managers in the beginning. And then you probably need like 1 or 2 front-end developers and 1 or 2 back-end developers.
Okay.
And then you need 1 UX UI designer. So you really need only 5 people.
Okay.
5 to 6 people to build the initial version of the product. And ideally, if you have this 5 team, like your sort of the core team, and they have skin in the game, and typically they can join from a good background and probably take some ESOPs and compromise on their fixed salary for the first 1 year. That's the kind of team you would want to build. And so typically, if you want to put this team together, you're really looking at least 5 to 6 lakhs compensation a month.
Yeah.
You're really looking at 50 lakhs investment in a year to make a good the first cut product.
Yeah.
So oftentimes people miscalculate this. So you need like 50 lakhs to start a product, or in cash or in kind, right? For example, all these 5 people, if they are willing to put sweat equity and then start the company, you don't need the 50 lakhs. So if you have those 5 people who are going to invest 1 year of their time and build the product, you really don't need the 50 lakhs. You can just get started. You probably need like very little money for hosting and stuff like that, maybe like 5 lakhs. Less than 5 lakhs for the whole 1 year. That's probably what you need.
Okay.
So this is really sort of the template that you need to have in mind.
Okay, yeah, thanks.
Perfect. Thank you, Hari, for that. I want to invite Utpal Vaishnav. Utpal is from Ahmedabad. Utpal, do you want to come online and ask Suresh? All right, I can ask on behalf of Utpal, and two parts question. First one is, you mentioned about books, but are there any specific books for SaaS building?
Yeah, there is one. Actually, it is not a book, it's a guide. I was actually the author of that guide along with 4 other founders. It's called Desk Marketing and Selling for Building SaaS Companies. It actually gives you the complete playbook for building a SaaS company, for marketing and selling a SaaS product. This is the book I pioneered and wrote that along with a few other founders, their experiences. It's a collective knowledge of all the Chennai SaaS companies' intellectual knowledge on how to market and sell SaaS products. We have sort of put it together in that. And if you Google for it, you will get it. It's called Desk Selling and Marketing Guide. SaaS guide for desk selling and marketing. If you need, I will post a link or send the link on email after this session.
Actually, you can post the link on the chat itself if you can dig it out, Suresh. That will be helpful for others.
Yeah, I will send that link. I think there is also another book on SaaS which is available on the internet on Amazon. It's a free book. I will also link. These are the 2 books that are available. The second book was actually inspired from the first book, and Prasanna from a company called Upeka, he rewrote that, I think. So that's a 2 books are available actually. Both are free, so you don't have to pay for it.
Good. Thanks, Suresh. Actually, the second part of the question is, are you planning to author a book? And you've already answered that.
I wouldn't say it's not a book. It's more like a guide. Meaning,
Suresh, take the credit when it comes to you. Okay.
No, actually, that's. I think let me also be clear. This is a community contribution. I was spearheading that whole thing. I put a lot of content myself, but Krish from ChargeBee has contributed. I think Girish also from Freshworks has wrote 1 or 2 pieces in that. A lot of companies, founders have contributed. It's actually a community contribution, actually.
Got it. Thank you. Yeah. I want to invite Rajesh Natarajan. It's a very critical question, but I think something absolutely valid to take on. So Rajesh, go ahead, please.
Hey, Rajesh, how are you?
Doing good. Hey, can you see my face now? Okay.
I can see you in my mind.
Okay, sure. Hey, first of all, congratulations to the superb interview that is going on. Kriba, I'm a big fan of you. For many years, I've been following you at least 10 years back. Now I see that you both are collaborating is a great sign. Just a critical question here. This is more from a standpoint of being an IT professional who had an experience working in both product and service companies, with mostly Chennai being a base. Okay, I do not see a narrative of Chennai being a Silicon Valley of world. I'm not saying Silicon Valley of India. At least I would say software, application software, and application product SaaS software capital of the world. It looks like companies like Kissflow, Zoho, and many companies are doing so well, ChargeBee, etc. I see some kind of campaign that happens like a $1 trillion, etc., that Suresh is championing with few other great founders based out of Chennai, but there is no sustained narrative. So I would urge some extraordinary communicative folks like Kripa to work and position Chennai as the real big software capital of the world. This is not happening in a sustained manner. I don't see any big write-ups in national and international. It is still, we are considered as a locally great guys. So just your thoughts on both of them.
Sure. No, but it is true. See, Bangalore, of course, has a significant global presence, meaning I would say significant global brand reputation when it comes to as an ecosystem in the global scale. But Chennai has not definitely reached that level. That's a true point. See, the opportunity that exists today is within India. Chennai has actually definitely raised its brand value as a SaaS capital of India. There is no doubt about it. If you can Google for it, here I can probably take the credit. I was probably the first one to coin this Chennai SaaS capital of India in 2014. And from there, we have been consistently building the narrative around it. And there is a lot of article that has been written subsequently on it. And Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu declared Chennai as the SaaS capital of India in 2019. So even government has recognized to some extent. I have spoken to I have presented to Central Minister Ravi Shankar Prasad. I've spoken to IT secretaries, and they are all aware of what is happening in Chennai. There is no doubt about it. But we had to, this SaaS is our greatest opportunity, not just to grow Chennai in India, but also to the global scale. And SaaS Boomi, for example, we started SaaS Boomi as an organization only to promote and take not just Chennai, but India as a whole to an international arena. When that happens, automatically Chennai will get its due credit. So that is how we are pursuing this. There is no doubt that more can be done in this. We are doing as much as we can, but there is no doubt that we can do more on this. Coincidentally, Kirpa, Rajesh Natarajan and me worked in my previous company, Selectica, for 4 years together. So we sort of know each other pretty well.
That's an interesting backstory. That is good. Thanks, Rajesh, for that question. I'm going to ask this on behalf of Saravana Kumar, and that is, what is your daily routine like? So I want you to answer this in two parts, Suresh, before COVID and during COVID. So what's your, from morning till evening, how do you keep yourself occupied? It is also a lesson for all of us on how to be more productive. Sure.
Post-COVID is, I think everybody's answer is same, I thought. There is no difference. We all have to sit at home. So anyway, post-COVID, pre-COVID. Pre-COVID, pretty much mostly it's the same for me. There's one big difference. I go for a morning walk, 7 to 8. And during the walk, I listen to, so I read a lot of books through Audible because it allows me to concentrate. I'm more of a visual and multimedia person rather than reading the books kind of a person. That's what I figured out. It actually works. Multimedia-based learning actually works better for me. And audiobooks actually works out very, very well. So, so I read for 1 hour every day, walk, as well as I read Audible. And then when I go back to office, another half an hour, I read, listen to Audible in my car, and then come back home half an hour. So roughly, I get an opportunity to listen to books for like 2 hours, where I double it with something else I'm doing. And then I mostly in office around 9:30, and I get out of office at around 8. So it's like 10 to 11 hours at office every day. And most of my office work is in meeting people, working on product. Most of the 10-11 hours goes in meetings. That's my main job, working with teams, what they are doing. I spend a significant, most of the time founders go away from product and spend a lot of time on sales. But I actually spend very less time on sales because for us, sales happens as a process and as a system and a method. And we have a very, very good sales team. I spend a lot of time on product. Every day I spend like close to, I would say 30 to 40% on product, and another 30 to 40% on marketing, and probably less than 10% on sales. So this is roughly how my day goes. Post-COVID and pre-COVID, what the only difference is, we are doing everything on Google Meet on post-COVID. Pre-COVID, we'll just do face-to-face meeting. That's the only difference. Other than that, nothing has changed. After COVID, in fact, I was actually pleasantly surprised about how productivity is actually increased in my team, probably because people are at home and they are concentrating on work. Plus, they also don't have anything else to do. They cannot get out. It's locked down. So a combination of that, we seeing like, at least in the product teams, there is at least 20 to 30% increase in productivity from work from home rather than loss in productivity. In fact, we are thinking that product team will permanently work in a remote model after the COVID. COVID, remote working has completely changed a lot of our assumptions around remote work. Actually, I want to differentiate between remote work and work from home. I think work from home, people are using it as like they have some work at home and they cannot come to office and they just they just use work from home as an option to sort of stay at home and do certain things, right? And almost always the productivity during work from home as a one day in a week, I don't think is very effective. But if the entire team, if there is a team, like we have a squad model, in a squad is like 10 to 12 people, which is like two pizza teams, right? That's all we have in our teams. If the entire squad works remotely, pretty much the entire model is worked on remotely, like there is nothing like one day in a week they're work from home, then it is actually working out very well. So the entire team needs to work remotely, plus the whole team needs to, it is not just for one day in a week, but it's for the whole week or the whole month or whatever it is. I think then it seems to be working out really well. Maybe on weekends, maybe we can get together to build some bonding and relationships and getting to know, but no work, but just have dinner and maybe drinks and then go back home. So just to build some, personal touch. I'm just thinking seriously, we'll investigate this model for remote work for product teams. So that's how things have changed after COVID for us.
Interesting. Suresh, you mentioned about the two pizza team. Do you want to give a background behind that and why is it effective?
See, the two pizza team is, I think this is, is it Amazon, Kirba?
Yeah, Jeff Bezos.
Yeah, Jeff Bezos probably coined that two pizza teams. Basically, a pizza can take 4 people, 4 to 5 people. If you order one pizza, you can actually give to 4 to 5 people. So if you have 2 pizzas for a team, that means you cannot have more than 10 people in the team. What we found out was we initially had 2 pizza smaller teams. Now over time, this whole team became bigger. Now we just coincidentally before COVID, around in January, we reorganized the whole teams around the 2 pizza teams. And we saw a huge productivity increase because people are able to coordinate better. There is no bureaucracy. There is no politics. Once you have 30-member, 40-member teams, right? The management overhead itself becomes too much of a hassle. And one of the things that I believe is there shouldn't be any management. It should be self-organized teams. There shouldn't be somebody like a manager. And if you have somebody like a manager, it creates more confusion than help actually. So most of our managers who are in the 2 pizza teams are actually contributors themselves. Their job is not just to manage. And they don't have any special entitlement as a manager. They themselves are core contributors. So once you do that, the teams become self-organized and they become very productive. They get out of a lot of politics. And we released a lot of new features after we did this reorg actually. The features which got stuck because, the last 2, 3, 4 years of growth, we made the teams bigger. Now we had like 70, 80 member team. Now suddenly we organized that into 7 different teams of 10 members each. We saw a huge boost in productivity and clarity and all of that come through. So that's a very, very good thing. We need to constantly do it, right? Because as we grow, suddenly this 7-member team again will become 30-40 member team. Then we need to do another reorg and then try to bring it back to the 2 pizza format, I guess.
Suresh, you mentioned that it could actually become a reality where companies will increasingly start to adopt remote working, which means that even their expenses towards high-end offices might come down. But interestingly, you mentioned that your productivity actually went up. So any best practices for us while we are working with our teams remotely? Can you share best practices?
Yeah, meaning actually we didn't do anything special, Kripa, honestly. I don't want to pull something off just for this. But we realized that we have built a great culture in the company. And because we built a great culture, which is rooted deeply on trust, we didn't have to do anything radical. And just to give you an idea, what do you mean by culture? We've invested we have this employee first versus a customer first philosophy, right? Most companies are thinking customers are king and we will do whatever they want. But we have mostly taken an employee first principle, right? So as long as you take care of your employees, they'll take care of your customers. So if you have to really take care of your customers, you have to take care of your employees. It's a very fundamental philosophy we have taken. Because of that, we have invested a lot in employee education, employee well-being, employee knowledge development, leadership development. We do this book reading programs. We do this G2G programs. We have something called OLP, which is Orange Cape Leadership Program, where we have taken 50, 60 of the middle managers and we meet every month, once in a month, and we do a program for 4 hours. We did a program called 5 Seats of Power. Right now we are doing a leadership and self-discipline book reading for 25 people. So we are, and then we do English trainings. We are on a constant pursuit on employee education, employee knowledge enrichment and all of that. So because of that, working from home or remote working did not become a difficulty for us. Actually, it was quite easy. The only thing is we just have to switch to video calls. We have to become more organized in calendar, booking the calendar time so that everybody comes. In fact, we found the discipline of people coming to meetings on video calls are much better. They are all, if it's a 10 o'clock meeting, everybody's on 10 o'clock pretty much. But if you have in-face meeting, people slowly start assembling. Only around 10:10, everybody is there, and then we are able to start the meeting only at 10 minutes after 10 o'clock. So all of those behavioral changes have happened. But most of the credit for us should go to the culture that we have built. That's what I would say. But I had few more things to sort of little bit walk through. A couple of slides. Just we are about to close, right?
Sure.
So one of the things in SaaS, since I forgot to mention about this, is that so when you start with a great idea, which means you know your ideal user and you know what is the problem that they have, and then there should be a word called your unique solution. Every problem can be solved multiple ways, and the way in which you are solving the problem makes your solution unique. And if that solution is very unique, and that in some sense is called the unique selling proposition as well, right? And that's how these 3 parts are connected in the idea box. And then you need to have a discoverable product. Then you need to have a great website, and a great website starts with a great first fold, and you need to have some credibility in the website. And then you need to have a great sign-up experience. Then once they're inside your product, which are they're trying your product, you have something called the shortest path to a functional wow. So you have to tick all these 5 boxes if you have to build and launch a great SaaS product. And someone asked about it, right? I talked about these 5 people that you need to hire. If you have those 5 people, the next goal for you is to see if you're ticking off all these boxes, right? If you're not ticking off all these boxes, then you'll not be able to go to have a good, successful launch. The other question that I think often people ask is like funding, right? When you're building a SaaS product, we need a lot of money and all of that. So here I'm just giving you examples, right? Like it is possible to build companies like Freshworks, which has gotten like $250 million funding, and probably has like $100+ million in revenue, right? Zoho has probably got $400-500 million in revenue, but they have zero funding. So, and similarly, Kissflow is not as big as Zoho or Freshworks, but we are like a mid-sized company, right? ChargeBee is somewhat comparable to us. They've raised $38 million in funding, and we have raised less than like $1 million in funding that to 7 years ago. And after that, we have been organically growing the company, right? So it is possible to build both type of companies, right? And certain companies are naturally amenable to funding-based growth curves, and certain companies are not. But it is not that funding is your ultimate showstopper. It is not. It is possible to build reasonably big companies without funding as well. And this is an answer to Rajesh Natarajan's question. If you have to really make Chennai as the SaaS capital of India and probably of the world, we have to build an ecosystem and not few companies, right? If you have to build an ecosystem, we need to build like a lot of companies, like 100,000 companies making $1 million in revenue. And maybe few of them will naturally, so this is where SaaS Boomi is focused on building 100,000 companies in India, at least getting to $1 million in revenue. This is what the ecosystem work is concentrated on. And once you succeed in this, automatically few of the companies will naturally move on to becoming like a $10 million companies. And some of that will become $1 billion companies, right? But our goal itself is not to build $1 billion companies, because $1 billion companies is a natural progression. We need to, as an ecosystem builder, SaaS Boomi is concentrating on building this 100,000 companies. How do we get them to get the first $1 million? And if we succeed in it, automatically India will become the global SaaS hub, just like how it became for IT services destination. India will become like a SaaS nation, and of course, automatically Chennai will get its due credit. So this is the journey that we need to all embark on, and that's where SaaS Boomi is focusing and putting its effort towards. Okay, I think I'll probably skip these slides, but these are good slides, but I'll probably skip this for now. Okay.
Got it. Suresh, we've come to the end of it. There are a lot of requests on the chat requesting you for the presentation. Do you think it's possible to put it on a public link and share it, Suresh?
Sure. I will put this in SlideShare or something and send it.
That's correct. That'll be a lot easier to send it out. I know that lots of people, and
if people want to reach out to me, this is my contact. Probably take a screenshot or something. I'm available on all the social platforms, but if you want to call me, don't call me, just WhatsApp me, and if you have a valid question, I'll probably reply to that. That's the best way to reach me.
Then it's always good to put your number at the bottom and not in bold like you did, Suresh. Just a tip.
I know, but actually, again, this is sort of an experiment. Always people know, if you give a number, people will abuse it. I have done this experiment, Kirba. People have not really abused that much.
Sure.
There are a lot of good people. Mostly people are good.
That's correct.
Yeah,
that's correct. So, so you promised on the presentation, you shared your contact details. That's been a fantastic 2 hours, Suresh. And on behalf of you and me, I want to apologize to many of the folks that you asked a lot of questions, but we weren't able to ask in because of time or because it wasn't in the right flow that we were going through. So please accept my apologies. I want to invite Akila or Pravina from, or Saurav from TiE Chennai to come and do a closing note.
So on behalf of TiE Chennai, it's my pleasure to thank you, Mr. Suresh Sambandam, for this wonderful, insightful session. Today, I'm sure our participants would have enjoyed it. I've been getting great feedbacks on my WhatsApp and all that. People have started constantly messaging me right after, just before you finished, they have already given me the feedback. So this is a great opportunity for them. And also thank you, Mr. Kriba, for, moderating the session today. It was a wonderful session. Thank you so much again.
Thank you, TiE, and thank you, Kriba. Kriba, it's always been a pleasure to do this session with you. So when Akila asked me like who you want as moderator, I said I want Kirba. So because it's always it's fun and it's a pleasure and it's a great experience doing the sessions with you. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Suresh, and thank you everyone.
Thank
really
you.
Appreciate taking your
have
time.
a great day. If you have any questions, ping me on the social media platforms. Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.